Men used to not care that much about their appearance, but as the years go by, more and more men are starting to realize the importance of looks, not just in dating, but everywhere. So, I gathered some widespread looksmaxxing techniques in order to see what's worth pursuing and what's not. Let's start with style and let's break it up in parts. Firstly, let's talk about clothing. I think that nice clothes can give someone a little bonus, but I don't think that they can transform a guy. I'm going to repeat this throughout the video. I'm not talking about extremes. Obviously, if you have a guy with dirty clothes who looks homeless, a change in clothing will make a big difference, but for a guy who dresses okay, improving his clothes won't make that big of a difference. My advice would be to focus on what looks good on you and not what's trendy. Maybe baggy clothes become a thing in your area, but you might have a great body, so it would be a shame to hide it under these clothes. With all that being said, I'll put clothing in C. Again, a normie can't turn into a Chad by upgrading his clothes, but it's a nice bonus. Now let's talk about hair and beard. Now this can actually make a big difference. The beard can be the equivalent of makeup. You can transform a below average jawline into a decent one. The same goes with haircuts to a lesser extent. You can hide some flaws such as slight temporal recession with the right cut. These things are also pretty inexpensive. I'm between A and B for this one. I think I'll go with A, because a beard can literally transform a jaw, which is a huge factor in facial attractiveness. I remember seeing my fellow soldiers on Instagram during my army days, and we'd always laugh at how bad we looked shaved, compared to our normal life bearded look. Time to talk about height. Many of you requested that I talk about leg lengthening. The thing is, that this is too much of a wild card and uncharted territory for me to rate. There are examples on the internet of guys who went from 5'4" to 5'10", a complete life changer. But, I'm not aware of the side effects, and I also think that the cost is huge, so I won't put it on the list. Another thing is that you only grow a specific bone, so the 5'4" guy who became 5'10", will have the same frame on a different height, which is kinda weird. Anyway, it's definitely something that would be a solution given that the side effect profile becomes almost non-existent. But, what I can rate is other height maxing methods. I'm talking about monochromatic outfits, tall shoes, insoles that give you an inch or two, haircuts, etc. You can definitely create a little bit of an illusion, but the effect will be temporary. But, even if not permanent, 2 inches is still a nice bonus, but I don't think it'll transform someone's dating life. I'll give it a C. Definitely try it though, since these methods are quite cheap. Moving on to mewing. I've made a whole video on it, but I'll give you the summary. I've noticed that most transformations aren't due to mewing, and it usually comes down to puberty or leaning down. Again, I think it's good for health reasons, and it's definitely good as a preventative measure, as it's been shown that mouth breathing destroys faces, and it also makes you look kinda dumb. But this is a looksmaxxing list, so I'm judging based on how much improvement it can provide, and I don't think it can do much for a fully grown adult, so I'll put it in C. If it was a health list, or a looks retention list, it would definitely be higher, but in terms of improvements, I'm not sold at all. Once again, it's free and healthy, so definitely do it, but don't expect miracles. Something that many times goes hand in hand with mewing are facial exercises. Once again, I'm not sold at all, plus all this flexing can potentially cause wrinkles, while mewing doesn't seem to have any noticeable negative effects, so it's a D. The only promising one is chewing hard foods, but take it easy and don't put too much pressure on your jaw joints. Now, let's talk about gym axing. Once again, I'm judging based on the vast majority of people, who have average faces and average frames. Getting to a low body fat percentage and adding some muscle can definitely change your appearance dramatically. Of course there are going to be some exceptions, where a guy might be so facially unattractive, that no amount of leanness and muscle can improve his chances, but there's also the opposite side of the spectrum. Obese guys with good underlying bone structure that transform from sub-5s to chads. With all that in mind, I'm going to put it in S. If you're one of the unlucky guys who has a terrible frame or bad facial structure, there are still the health benefits, both physical and mental, so it's a must for every guy out there. The next one is the world famous, just take a shower bro. So, hygiene and scent. Once again, given that most guys are fairly clean, use deodorant and brush their teeth, this advice is pretty useless. People who give this advice must think that half the population stinks, which as you know is not true. I've been in many groups in my life including school, college, army, you name it. I've only encountered like 3 or 4 guys who were consistently smelling bad. So, for the vast majority of people, it won't improve their appearance because they're already taking care of it. Buying a nice cologne might give you a tiny little boost, so I'll give it a D. Time to talk about posture. I think the vast majority of people have an okay posture, meaning they're not super straight and confident, but they also don't look like this guy from the movie 300. Maintaining a good posture has many benefits, including avoiding or even fixing back and neck pain, and it also has an impact on your mood. Imagine a guy who just lost a big football match. What did you think of? Probably a guy looking down with his neck and back slightly curved. Now, think of a winner. What comes to mind is a guy with open body language, standing straight. But, given that most guys have a relatively okay posture, you'll most likely just gain an inch in height and a little bit of a confidence boost. You won't transform yourself by fixing your posture, except if you are an extreme case, so I'll put it in C. And now get your cucumbers ready, because it's skincare time. Once again, most guys have an okay skin. They're not scarred by acne etc., but they also don't have this Hollywood glowing skin. The skin is a major indicator of health, and it can transform someone's life if they severely lack in that area, but for the average okay skinned guy, it won't do much. Once again, a C. I've been saying it in every method, but let's say it again for those who are ready to leave an angry comment. The criterion here is how much improvement the average guy will see. If you have acne, of course skincare will be rated as S, if you smell bad, of course hygiene will be rated as S etc., but most guys are okay in all areas and improving their skin or their posture a bit won't transform them. Losing body fat and most importantly face fat will. And almost everyone who can grow a beard and doesn't have a Brad Pitt jawline will be massively benefited by growing their beard. Anyway, back to the list. Time to talk about cosmetic procedures. Once again, disclaimer, I'm not a medical professional, so always talk with a reputable doctor, and ideally with many of them, so you can see what's up in each specific case. Let's begin with hair transplants. Absolutely massive. Hair transplants can save dating lives, depending of course on the level someone's hair can be restored. I'm going to talk about the individuals who are somewhere between Norwood 3 and 4, because they can fully restore their hair and the change will be dramatic. So, having in mind these average hair loss cases, I'll put it in S. Now, if you're someone that's a Norwood 6, you'll probably be better off shaving your head, instead of trying to restore it, because the best you can achieve is a Norwood 3 with mediocre density, so it's not worth it in my opinion. Let's continue with facial hair and talk about eyebrows. Some people use the same method as the hair, which is called FUE. Eyebrows are definitely a nice feature, and it's probably my best one, but I'm not going to be biased. It's not nearly as important as the hair or the jaw or the eyes, but they can improve the eye area a bit. There are some chads who have relatively thin eyebrows, so, it's not a make or break, but still a good one, so I'll put eyebrow transplants in B. From what I gather, both hair and eyebrow transplants are pretty safe, so that's another plus. Now, let's continue with something more invasive. Nose surgery. The nose is far more important when it comes to a female face compared to a man's face, and the reason is simple. Quote-unquote cute noses are a feminine characteristic, and they look great on many men too, but you can still get away with a slightly bigger or a slightly crooked nose, especially if you have a strong jawline. It's all about harmony. There are quite a few attractive guys who don't have perfectly straight noses, so once again, a nice bonus, but not a make or break. I'll also put this one in B, and remember it's all based on the average guy. If your nose makes you look like an eagle, then the improvement will obviously be greater. And once again, nose jobs are considered quite safe when performed by an experienced surgeon. An even more invasive procedure is jaw surgery. You're probably tired of hearing me repeating the same pattern, but I'll say it again. If you are super recessed, it's a miracle procedure. However, I wouldn't advise the average guy to go through something like this, as many of you can reach a decent level by leaning down or growing a beard. So, having the average guy and how invasive this procedure is in mind, I'll put it in B. Once again, a great jawline is one of the best features a man can have, but there are ways around it. Some guys also do beard transplants, or grow their facial hair using minoxidil. Speaking of minoxidil, let's talk about it and also finasteride. As we mentioned, hair is very important. Very few guys can successfully sport the shaved head look. I've also talked about minoxidil and finasteride in another video, but the gist of it is that it's quite safe for most guys, and quite efficient for those who catch their hair loss early. Given that you'll start early and won't wait until you become like Jeff Bezos, I think it's a great first line of action. But, it won't work for absolutely everyone, either due to side effects or due to rapid hair loss, so I'll give it an A instead of an S. We've had some good ones, but now it's time for a bad one. Lip fillers. For men. You heard that right, some men out there go and enhance their lips. Even if you have extremely thin lips, it's not that unattractive for a man, and given how many botched lip transformations we've seen, this is the last thing I'd do. I'll put it in E. Something a bit more important is Botox. It's usually done for forehead wrinkles, but I think it's also done for the area around the eyes. Given that most guys won't have a huge problem, I don't think this should be high in your priority list. There are quite a few chads with forehead wrinkles, so it's not that big of a deal. It can provide a little bonus though, and it's quite safe, so I'll put it in C. Moving on, let's talk about teeth. A good smile is definitely a big boost. Fixing your teeth, however, is not as simple as it seems. Many orthodontists perform extractions which weaken the bone tissue, and many times the braces pull your face down and back, giving that horse face look. It's not worth it to risk damaging your face in order to improve your smile a bit. But, if you're someone that won't need extractions and your teeth are pretty whack, you should definitely consider it. Taking all this into account, I'll put it in A. Very important feature, but not as important as the eyes, the jaw and the hair, and it has also potential negative effects, that's why I didn't put it on the very top. This video is already too long, and there are countless cosmetic procedures out there. Comment below what I missed and I'll tell you my opinion. Thanks for watching until the end. See you in the next one.